Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. The evening sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows of the boutique, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Inside, the room was pristine, every surface polished to a gleam, every display case arranged with exacting precision. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in watches gleamed under the warm light, each timepiece a masterpiece of craftsmanship and wealth. Yet amidst all this luxury, she felt painfully out of place. Her name was Amina. She had never stepped foot inside a place like this before. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the small velvet box she had brought with her. A simple box, nothing like the gleaming cases around her. She was dressed modestly, in worn shoes and a plain scarf that barely disguised the years of hardship etched in her face. The boutique staff watched her with thinly veiled suspicion. Their polite smiles didn't reach their eyes. Amina's heart pounded louder with every step she took deeper into the store. A man in a crisp suit approached, his expression cool, but with a trace of condescension. "Madam, are you sure you want to see this collection?" he asked, voice smooth but cold. "These pieces are quite exclusive." She nodded, swallowing her nervousness. "Yes, please." As he led her to a display of the most expensive watches, a whisper rippled through the room. A woman nearby smirked openly, glancing at Amina's simple attire and worn handbag. "Are you sure you belong here?" the woman whispered to her companion, loud enough for Amina to hear. Amina forced herself not to react. The sting of mockery was sharp, but she had a reason to be here, a purpose that went beyond the sneers and judgment. She opened the velvet box carefully, revealing a delicate watch inside. It was an old piece, one that held memories more than money. Amina touched the face of the watch gently, as if reconnecting with something precious from her past. "Is this yours?" the sales assistant asked, leaning in closer, his tone a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. "Yes," Amina replied softly. "It belonged to my father." The man's eyes flicked over the watch, then to her hands. "A very rare piece," he said, the surprise clear in his voice. "But it's quite worn." "I know," she said quietly. "It means everything to me." Suddenly a sharp laugh echoed from the other side of the room. The woman who had been whispering earlier stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with a cruel amusement. "You really think that old thing compares to what we have here?" she sneered, waving her hand at the glittering displays. "This is a place for people who understand value." Amina's cheeks flushed, but she held her ground. "Value isn't always about money," she said calmly. The woman laughed again, louder this time. "Keep telling yourself that," she said. Just then, the boutique doors swung open with a dramatic flair. Heads turned as a tall man entered, his presence immediately commanding attention. He wore a sharp suit, but there was no arrogance in his eyes, only quiet strength. "Enough," he said simply, his voice low but carrying through the room like thunder. The crowd fell silent. Amina looked up, heart pounding. It was her husband, Tariq. He walked straight to her side, pulling a small, shining card from his pocket. The logo on the card was unmistakable, the very brand that owned the boutique. "I'll take that one," he said, nodding toward the velvet box in her hands. A stunned silence followed. $1.8 million, he added. The woman who had mocked Amina gasped, her mouth falling open. The staff exchanged glances, some confused, others impressed. But Amina didn't smile. Instead, her eyes searched Tariq's face, looking for answers in the calm resolve there. Why had he come? And what was really inside that small velvet box that could cause such a scene? Amina's story before tonight. Amina's life had been anything but glamorous. She grew up in a small town, the daughter of a humble watchmaker. Her father wasn't wealthy, but his hands created wonders, intricate timepieces that kept perfect time and told stories with every tick. When he passed away, Amina inherited his shop and the old watch, that had belonged to him. That watch was more than just an object. It was a symbol of her family's legacy and her own promise to keep their craft alive. But times changed. The shop struggled. Larger companies pushed small artisans like her father to the edges. Amina had to find ways to survive. She took on odd jobs, worked late into the night, and saved every penny. And then came the opportunity, an auction of rare watches from a legendary collection, including a piece that once belonged to a forgotten royal family. The auction house had invited only a select few. Amina wanted to see if she could find something to secure her family's future, not to flaunt wealth, but to protect what her father had built. That's why she found herself standing in the most exclusive boutique in the city tonight, velvet box in hand, caught between worlds she barely understood. The boutique's silence lingered, heavy with disbelief. The $1.8 million price tag floated in the air like a secret too loud to ignore. Amina's eyes never left her husband Tariq, who stood beside her as calm as a winter lake. The staff and customers watched them like spectators at a play, unsure whether to applaud, whisper, or simply retreat. The woman who had mocked Amina now looked stunned, her confident sneer wiped away by surprise and confusion. Tariq placed the business card gently on the counter and turned to Amina. His eyes softened for a moment. "We need to talk," he said quietly. Amina nodded, though. Inside, her mind raced. She felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Relief that he was here now, but anxiety about what came next. The price of legacy. Later that night, in the quiet of their modest apartment, Amina sat by the small kitchen table, the velvet box resting between her hands like a fragile treasure. Tariq poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to her before taking a seat opposite. "This watch," Tariq began, "it's more than just a luxury item. It's a symbol, a key to something important." Amina looked at him confused. "I thought it was just an old family piece." "It is, but also much more. The watch your father made, the one you carry with you, has a hidden history." She frowned. "What kind of history?" Tariq hesitated for a moment, then spoke carefully. "Decades ago, your father was involved in something rare. A secret circle of master watchmakers who created pieces not only for telling time, but for protecting secrets." Amina's heart skipped. "Secrets? What kind of secrets?" "Important. Tariq said. "Information hidden in the design, in the mechanisms that only a few could understand. Your father's watch is one of those. A masterpiece with a hidden compartment." Amina's fingers trembled as she touched the watch's face. "I never knew." "It's why you were mocked tonight," Tariq explained. "Because they didn't see the watch. They only saw your appearance. But that watch represents something priceless." Amina's mind reeled. The simple life she thought she had, the struggles and sacrifices, what if they were only the surface of something much deeper? Uncovering the hidden compartment over the next days, Tariq and Amina pored over the watch together. They researched its design, consulted old blueprints, and even contacted a few old master watchmakers who remembered the secret society Tariq had mentioned. One evening, after weeks of searching, they found it, a tiny latch hidden beneath the faceplate, cleverly disguised by delicate engravings. With a cautious click, the watch opened to reveal a small hidden compartment. Inside, a folded piece of yellowed paper lay carefully tucked away. Amina's breath caught as she unfolded it. The paper was fragile, but the writing was clear. A series of coordinates and cryptic notes in her father's handwriting. "What does this mean?" she whispered. "It's a map," Tariq said, tracing the lines with his finger. "A map to something your father wanted to protect." The journey begins. The revelation changed everything. Amina realized that her father had left her a secret legacy far beyond what she ever imagined. It wasn't just about surviving or keeping a family business alive. It was about protecting something valuable, something dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands. Together, they made a plan. The next step was clear. They had to follow the coordinates. But the deeper they dug, the more dangerous the journey became. Amina received strange calls late at night, voices that whispered warnings or threats. Shadowy figures seemed to watch their apartment. The woman in the boutique was only the beginning of a much larger challenge. Trust and doubt one evening, as the sun dipped low and cast long shadows across the city, Tariq sat across from Amina. Concern etched on his face. "We're not just chasing a family secret anymore," he said quietly. "People want what your father hid. Powerful people." Amina nodded slowly. "I always thought the hardest part was surviving day to day, but this is different," Tariq agreed. "We need to be careful." Despite the danger, Amina felt a strange surge of determination. This was her father's legacy, and she wouldn't let it slip away. A glimpse of the past in. The following days, Amina visited her father's old workshop, a dusty room filled with tools and half-finished watches. She ran her fingers over the worn wooden workbench and felt closer to him than she had in years. Among his belongings, she found a faded photograph of her father with a group of men, watchmakers and inventors, standing proudly in front of an old building. Written on the back was a date and a name, the Brotherhood of Time. The name sent chills down her spine. Who were they, and what had they created? The suspense builds as Amina and Tariq prepared for their journey to the location marked on the map. Tension wrapped around them like a thick fog. They didn't know what awaited, treasure, danger, or betrayal. The night before they left, Amina sat by the window, clutching the old watch, thinking about everything she had endured, the mockery, the doubt, the mystery, and the man standing beside her who was willing to fight for her and her family's past. The story was only beginning. The early morning sun filtered through the dusty windows of the old workshop, casting pale beams onto the worn wooden floorboards. Amina stood silently, staring at the faded photograph she had found just days before, her father surrounded by a group of serious-looking men. They called themselves the Brotherhood of Time. The name sent a shiver through her spine, but also ignited a spark deep within her heart. Who were these men? What was their purpose? And why had her father been part of something so secretive? Her fingers traced the edges of the photo as Tariq entered the room, carrying 2 steaming cups of tea. He set one down beside her and said quietly, "We're running out of time, Amina. Whoever is after the watch's secret is already moving." She nodded, swallowing her fear. "I want to know everything about this brotherhood," she said. "Maybe they can help us." The search for answers there. First step was clear. Find someone who remembered the brotherhood. But that wasn't easy. The men in the photograph had been secretive by design, scattered over time like shadows fading into dusk. They started with an old friend of her father's, an elderly man named Yusuf, who still lived in the small town where Amina grew up. Tariq made the calls. Amina packed their essentials for the journey ahead. When they arrived at Yusuf's humble home, the old man greeted them with cautious eyes. "I heard of your father," Yusuf said slowly. "And the Brotherhood. Yes, I remember. They were a group of master watchmakers who believed that time held secrets beyond what we see." Amina leaned forward, heart pounding. "What kind of secrets?" Yusuf sighed, settling into his worn armchair. "Not just secrets. They made watches that could hide messages, protect information from enemies. They worked in silence for the good of many. But years ago, they disbanded after betrayal from within." Amina's mind raced. Betrayal? Could that explain the dangers surrounding her now? A hidden betrayal. Yusuf's stories painted a picture of loyalty and deceit intertwined. The Brotherhood had been entrusted with safeguarding crucial knowledge during times of political turmoil. Some believed their creations could change the course of history. But not everyone was loyal, Yusuf said. One of their own sold secrets to the highest bidder. That caused their downfall. Amina glanced at Tariq, her resolve hardening. We need to find out who betrayed them. Yusuf shook his head. That secret is buried deep and dangerous. You must be careful. The map's destination with Yusuf's guidance, they deciphered more notes hidden within the folds of the yellowed paper. The coordinates led to a remote location, deep in the mountains outside the city. It's a long journey, Tariq said, folding the map carefully. And not without risks. Amina looked toward the horizon, determination shining in her eyes. We don't have a choice. Journey into the mountains. The road was rough, winding through thick forests and rocky terrain. As they traveled farther, from the city's safety, Amina felt the weight of the past and future pressing on her shoulders. Nightfall brought cold winds and eerie silence. Around their small campfire, Tariq shared stories of his own family's history, stories of honor, sacrifice, and the fight to protect what truly matters. Amina listened, finding comfort in his strength and in the flickering flames that pushed back the darkness. The discovery after days of travel, they reached an old stone building partially hidden by vines and moss, a forgotten watchmaker's lodge once used by the Brotherhood. Inside, the air was thick with dust and mystery. Walls were lined with sketches, blueprints, and notes in a language only a few could read. In the center of the room lay a sturdy wooden chest. Amina's hands trembled as she opened it, revealing a collection of watches, tools, and a leather-bound journal. The journal's pages revealed the Brotherhood's deepest secret, a powerful invention hidden within one of the watches, a device capable of protecting information through time itself, a sudden threat. Before they could explore further, a shadow fell over the doorway. Figures emerged from the darkness, men with cold eyes and firm grips, clearly not there by accident. "Step away from the chest," their leader commanded, voice like ice. Amina's heart raced. The danger they feared had found them. Tariq moved, in front of her protectively. "We're only trying to preserve history," he said calmly. The men laughed darkly. "History belongs to those who control it." Escape and resolve, a fierce struggle broke out. Though outnumbered, Tariq and Amina used every ounce of their courage and wit to escape the lodge. Breathless and shaken, they fled into the forest, the sounds of their pursuers fading behind them. Safe for the moment, Amina clutched the journal tightly. The stakes were higher than ever, but so was her determination. "We have to finish what your father started," she said, voice steady, despite the fear. The next step back in the city, Amina and Tariq knew they couldn't trust anyone else. The secret of the Brotherhood was alive, and the world was watching. As they planned their next move, Amina felt the weight of history on her shoulders, but she also felt a fierce hope. This was no longer just a family legacy. It was a fight for truth, for justice, for time itself. The city lights twinkled beneath the twilight sky as Amina and Tariq returned from the mountains, the stolen journal clutched tightly in her hands. Every shadow seemed to whisper secrets, every passerby a potential threat. But they had no choice but to press forward. The Brotherhood's legacy demanded it. The truth was within reach, and so was danger. Unveiling the Brotherhood's secret back, in their apartment, they spread the journal open across the kitchen table. The yellowed pages, scrawled in a mix of calligraphy and technical notes, described an invention that went beyond craftsmanship. A watch capable of encoding data through a complex mechanism no one else could decipher. "This is more than just a watch," Tariq said, his eyes scanning the pages. "It's a key to secrets that could change everything." Amina nodded, feeling the weight of generations resting on her shoulders. And that's why they want it. But what exactly does this device protect? Turning the page, Amina found a detailed drawing. A watch with hidden gears and a small compartment containing a tiny roll of microfilm. This microfilm, she whispered, must hold the secrets. A race against time. The next morning, they carefully extracted the tiny microfilm hidden within the watch's compartment. But the moment they did, the quiet apartment was shattered by urgent knocks at the door. "Open up! Police!" the voice called. Amina's heart stopped. Had their enemies infiltrated law enforcement? Tariq moved swiftly, pulling her back from the door. "Don't answer," he warned. "They're here to take the journal." Frantically, they packed the watch, the microfilm, and the journal into a small bag and slipped out through the back. Window, trust shattered. The streets were a blur as they raced through alleys and side roads. Amina felt betrayed, not just by the shadowy figures hunting them, but by the city itself. Who could they trust? They sought refuge at Yusuf's home, the only place that felt safe. The old man greeted them with a grim expression. "You've brought trouble," Yusuf said, "but I see you carry the truth." He took the microfilm carefully. "I have a contact, someone who can decode this." The decoder too, days later, in a dimly lit room filled with old technology, Amina and Tariq met Zara, a cryptographer and historian dedicated to uncovering lost knowledge. Zara examined the microfilm, her fingers deft and steady. Hours passed as she worked, translating the encoded data. Finally, she looked up. "This is a map, but not a map of places. It's a map of time itself." Amina blinked. "What does that mean?" Zara explained. "The Brotherhood believed time could be navigated, that events could be influenced by understanding its flow. This microfilm contains clues to hidden moments in history where decisions could be changed." Tariq's eyes darkened. "And people want that power." Betrayal revealed. Suddenly, the room's door burst open. Armed men stormed in, led by a familiar face. The boutique woman who had mocked Amina at the beginning. "You should have stayed quiet," she sneered. "Now you'll lose everything." Amina felt a surge of anger and fear. They had been watched all along. In the chaos, Zara managed to throw a smoke bomb. Through the confusion, Amina, Tariq and Zara escaped, hearts pounding, breath ragged. A new alley once safe, Zara revealed her own history. She had been tracking the Brotherhood's secrets for years, but alone she could not fight those who sought to control time. Together, the three formed an unbreakable bond, a team united by courage, knowledge, and the will to protect the truth. The final journey, using the decoded map, they planned a final trip to the place marked as the Heart of Time, rumored to hold the Brotherhood's ultimate secret. The journey was perilous, filled with traps, puzzles, and shadows of the past. Each step tested their strength and trust. Amina's moment. At the journey's climax, Amina faced a choice: use the Brotherhood's power to change her family's fate or protect the future for all. Tears streamed as she remembered the mockery, the struggle, and the love that had carried her here. With a steady hand, she chose to protect the future. Legacy fulfilled. The secret was secured, the enemies defeated, and the truth safe. For now. Amina, Tariq, and Zara emerged stronger, their lives forever changed by the journey. The simple woman who had been mocked was now a guardian of time itself. The end.